Darkness, static, then flashes. A Terran command bridge, alarms blaring, smoke curling through shattered glass. A voice screaming over comms, "He knows! Cut the feed!" Then silence. James Halden jolted awake, gasping. He was back in the medbay of the Black Star, sweat clinging to his cryo-withered skin. Just a dream. But not just a dream. A memory, fractured and sharp-edged. He blinked at the ceiling, then muttered, "Hell of a wake-up call." The air on the Black Star still smelled like hot metal and old blood. James Halden had been conscious for 3 days, and already he felt the weight of eyes that didn't trust him. Not that he blamed them. He wasn't exactly easy company. A man frozen for 72 years, found drifting in a graveyard of Terran wreckage? Yeah, not exactly comforting. Especially when that man started asking questions no one else dared voice. James leaned against the cool metal wall outside the medbay, staring at his reflection in a scorched panel. The burn along his temple had begun to heal, but the scar was still angry. His breath fogged slightly against the alloy as he muttered to himself, "Still alive, Jimmy. For now." The door behind him hissed open. Dreknar stood in the threshold, arms folded, tall and impassive, his ash-blue scales catching the low light. The Qatari captain had a way of making silence feel like a question. James offered a smirk. "You always sneak up on people like that? Or just the ones you think are dangerous?" Dreknar's jaw twitched. "If you were dangerous, you wouldn't be standing." "That's comforting," James said, pushing off the wall. "You wanted to talk?" "In the core room. Bring your answers." He followed Dreknar through the ship's spine, metal floors groaning under their boots, lights flickering just enough to remind James this wasn't a warship. It was patched together from other wrecks, like a junkyard made sentient. They arrived at a sealed door, covered in warning glyphs and rusted locks. Dreknar keyed a sequence into a cracked panel. The door opened with a reluctant hiss. Inside, relics, stacks of scavenged Union tech, fragments of war drones, data cores half melted, even a preserved Terran comms console, scarred but intact. James's eyes widened. This was a forbidden archive, stuff you'd be executed for in half the galaxy. "You've been busy," James muttered. "This is where we keep the ghosts," Dreknar said. James stepped forward slowly, reverently. "And you're letting me in, why?" "Because," Dreknar said, "you were part of a Terran relay team, and this," he gestured to a dormant relay node, encased in carbon shielding, "is what your kind left behind." James crouched beside it, fingers brushing the surface. The relay node was old, pre-collapse design. He could feel the residual charge vibrating beneath his skin. "Give me 5 minutes," he said. Dreknar folded his arms. "You have 2. James grinned. "You really know how to make a guy feel welcome." He pulled a connector from his cryo-suit wrist pad, one he'd modified with some Qatari wiring the night before, and jacked into the node. The interface stuttered, spat noise, then flickered alive. Symbols scrolled across the holographic display, Union code mixed with something deeper, older. James's pupils dilated. Holy hell! A star map bloomed in the air, 3D layered with encrypted paths and red pulses marking regions in deep space. Dreknar stepped back, his crest rising. "What is this?" he asked. "Relay coordinates. Not for trade routes," James whispered. "For deployments. This is a Terran ghost fleet." "You're certain?" James nodded slowly. "I worked on systems like this. We had fallback contingencies, dark fleets with black orders. If Earth ever fell, these ships would vanish into pre-calculated sectors. Waiting. For what?" James turned, voice low. For the signal. For someone to wake them up. The map pulsed once. And then a voice, faint, mechanical, filtered through 70 years of static, echoed through the chamber. Beacon command active. Terran encryption verified. Clearance Alpha 3 confirmed. Awaiting final directive. Dreknar's eyes narrowed. What the hell did you just activate? James unplugged his interface. Not activate, discover. That node's been sending a silent ping for decades. Someone left a breadcrumb trail. I think my team found it before we were hit. Dreknar stared at him. You're telling me there's an entire fleet of Terran warships sitting dormant in Union space? James stood. Not dormant. Hibernating. Outside the relic chamber, tensions swelled like storm pressure before a lightning strike. News traveled fast through a ship like the Black Star. Soon, half the crew knew. Kren, the communications officer with the sharp tongue and sharper claws, had already started voicing doubts. James heard him from the mess hall. He touches one terminal and ghosts start talking. We should have left him in cryo. James entered just in time to hear Rek, the six-armed security chief, growl in reply. Say it louder, Kren. Maybe the Union will hear you. Kren turned, saw James, and sneered. The human's not part of this crew. James raised a brow. Then stop talking like I can't hear you. Kaylin Rin was there too. She stood near the food dispenser, arms crossed, watching James with an unreadable expression. Her red hair shimmered in the ship's dim lights, her green hazel eyes catching every detail. Kren scoffed. You expect us to follow some relic hacker on a wild jump into Union territory? James stepped closer. I'm not asking for trust. I'm telling you what's out there. If you'd rather stay scavenging dead worlds for spare parts, be my guest. Kren's mandibles twitched. You think you're special because you're Terran. I think, James said calmly, that I'm the only one here who knows how to read those coordinates without getting this ship blown apart. Silence. Then Kaylin spoke. Let him speak. If he's lying, we'll know. Later, in the engine bay, James worked alone, modifying a routing protocol in the nav core to better interpret the ancient Terran jumps. Kaylin entered, quiet as breath. She leaned against the doorframe, arms folded. You could have fried our systems with that relay stunt. I could have, James replied without looking. Didn't. She watched him. You've touched code no one has for decades. You're not just an engineer. He stopped, turned. Number I'm not. Kaylin stepped closer. What were you really doing out there? James hesitated, then slowly. Survey team was a cover. We were tracking rogue Union comms. Thought they were hiding something. Turns out, we were right. And your team? Dead, because someone knew we were close. She studied him. You're scared. Only of remembering why I survived. The two stood in silence for a moment longer. Then the alert klaxon screamed through the ship. James and Kaylin sprinted to the bridge, where Dreknar and Rek were already reading data off the main screen. Contact, Dreknar barked. 3 ships, same type as before. No IFF. Kren's voice was tight. They're not broadcasting demands this time. James narrowed his eyes. Because they don't need to. We woke something up. Now they're coming to put it back to sleep. Kaylin slid into a console. Shields up, engines hot. We ready to run? Dreknar's hand hovered over the jump control. We could outrun them, but if we do, we lose the lead. James stepped forward. Then don't run. Jump. Rek frowned. To the Ghost Fleet? James nodded. I don't know who's chasing me, but I know where the answers are. Dreknar looked at each crew member in turn. We jump in 6 hours. If anyone wants off this ship, speak now." No one moved. Hours passed like a drumbeat in slow motion. James sat in his quarters, legs crossed, eyes closed. The map still hovered above his wrist pad, that pulsing red star. He stared at his ribs, where the strange scar ran down beneath his skin. He hadn't noticed it before, but now he could feel a hum under the surface. Gingerly, he pulled out a scalpel from the med kit and pressed it against the skin, just enough to split the surface. A faint blue glow emerged. Wires, subdermal tech. They had embedded a data chip into his body. He wasn't just the survivor. He was the key. James stood and looked out the porthole into space. Someone's going to regret not finishing the job. Dreknar entered without knocking. "We're ready." James turned. "Then let's wake the ghosts." On the bridge, the crew was tense. Kalen sat at the navigation. Rek checked weapon systems. Kren looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. Dreknar took the helm. "All systems green. Coordinates locked." James stood behind him, staring into the stars. "You ever wonder," he murmured, "why they were so desperate to erase us?" Dreknar's voice was gravel. "Because they couldn't control you. Maybe they still can't. Let's find out." The Black Star groaned as the engines flared. Stars stretched. The ship shuddered once and vanished.